Welcome everybody. Today we are talking with Miss Myria Perez. She is a fossil preparator at the Perot Museum and will be telling us about her job. So let's get started and let her tell a little about this.
Hi, so as a fossil preparator, my job consists of working with the fossils themselves. So I spend my day breaking away rock from the fossil bones and other fossils that we have in our lab.
Wow, that is so cool. I've never heard of anybody getting to do this job. So can you tell us a little bit more about your particular day?
Yeah, so for the most part, we probably spend, I don't know, 70–80% actually working on the fossil. And then another aspect of my job is to help volunteers. We have volunteers that come in of all different backgrounds. Like we even have an engineer and a veterinarian. They have their normal day job and then they come in and volunteer for us. And so I teach them how to prep fossils. So I have to instruct them as well. And then every so often we get to go out in the field, which is one of my favorite parts. We actually go out and collect the fossil and bring it back so we can prep it and clean it up later. And then we do a little bit of outreach. So the museum will have events and I get to go out and talk about my job and what we have in the lab currently. And so a little bit of people skills in there along with prep skills.
Very cool. What is the craziest fossil that you've gotten to unearth?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So when I started out in paleontology, I would go out in the field and we dug up animals from what's called the Permian period, and that's all before the dinosaurs existed. And there's all kinds of weird animals that lived during that time. And I think the weirdest one and the cutest one is called Diplocalus, and it is an amphibian, and its head is shaped like a boomerang. So I think that's probably the most interesting fossil I've worked on, just because it's such an odd animal.
That's so crazy, a boomerang fish, boomerang amphibian. So does your job take any special talents?
You have to be able to focus and work under magnification for hours. So having patience in fossil prep is very important. I think you do need some sort of artistic ability, some artistic skills, because you're, in problem solving skills, you're unearthing something that no person, no human has ever seen before. So you don't really know where the bones are going to be or, what changes the rock may have in there. So you have to have a kind of an artistic way of prepping it out and skillfully and patiently prepping it.
And does your job, it seems very exciting for you. I'm assuming the answer to if it's exciting is a yes.
It's very exciting. I think different people will say, they definitely get the comment, oh, that's tedious, because you are working on something for hours at a time, but it becomes like this kind of very therapeutic like rhythm. You're unearthing stuff and you really know the tool and you're seeing something that no one else has seen. So you're making a discovery, even though the fossil you might be prepping was discovered already by someone in the field, you still have the potential to discover tooth marks and puncture marks or different pathologies. So bones that have gone like through arthritis, you can see all of those and read the fossils. So it's always, I think it's exciting, yeah.
How do you read a fossil? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in learning the difference between rock and bone, you look for texture, color change, and different like shapes. So when you read a fossil, you're trying to look and comparatively like looking at anatomy. So you're using a little bit of anatomy, which I love, but like what's the shape of the bone like? What kinds of shapes go on what part of the animal? Oh, there's a little piece here that's really shiny. It's got all these little bumps. Well, maybe it's from the skull part instead. And so you learn to just kind of, you only have like chunks of bone that are partial. You got to be able to figure out, okay, these are muscle scars. Those probably go to, a limb element, maybe a part of a leg. And yeah.
Did you like puzzles as a kid?
Actually, no, I didn't do them a whole lot. I definitely appreciate them more now. But I just was obsessed with fossils and dinosaurs. And then I loved art. And so with fossil prep, I get to use my hands a lot. And occasionally we do projects called molding and casting, which can get pretty messy. You're making a copy of a fossil. You get to use things like silicone rubber and resins. You got to mix those things, and it's really like gooey and fun. But yeah.
Did you always know you wanted to do this, or how did you get into this field?
I've always loved dinosaurs since I was a kid. I can't pinpoint one particular point in time. My mom would always bring me to the Houston Museum of Natural Science when I was a kid. And I mean, she made me dinosaur dresses because they didn't even have dinosaur dresses made for girls. I played toy dinosaurs and everything. And then when I was 12 years old, I went to this event at the Houston Museum called Dino Days with paleontologist Dr. Bacher, a famous paleontologist. And there I was able to meet him and ask him questions. And I even asked, how can I be involved in this? And he mentioned volunteering. And so through there, like they somehow let 12-year-old me become a volunteer as long as my mom was with me. But I started learning how to prep, and I learned how to give exhibit tours and go on field excavations through that.
Wow, that's very cool. So do they do similar volunteering here if your parents accompany you as well?
The Perot Museum's a little different. They do have internship opportunities for teens and high schoolers.
Okay.
And we do let young people into the lab to see it and volunteer. I think the minimum age is 18, but we do have volunteering opportunities.
The good thing for a high school student to think about is they're getting towards 18.
Yes.
And you talked about going out in the field and doing these different things. So how does this job work for where you live? Can you live all over the US? Are there lots of places that people do excavations and things?
Thankfully, in Texas, we have a lot of fossils. We have fossils from before the dinosaurs, we have after the dinosaurs, and we have dinosaurs. But in terms of fossil prep as a job, there are very few positions out there. So I will say that is one downside to fossil prep and paleontology in general. It's very competitive. And the jobs, you kind of have to go wherever the job's open, And it typically is like you can have some in big cities. So there's, wherever there's a museum in a big city that has a fossil prep lab, or, small town museums will hire fossil preparers as well. So you are dependent on what jobs are out there and what you can apply for and qualify for. So it's not like you can go, oh, I'm going to go to LA and just, be there, unfortunately. But that is what's real about it.
Well, it's good to know. And how would you advise a student who, we talked about some of the internship things that they can do as they get a little older. What other advice do you have for a student who, might be planning for their future, for classes and different things like that?
Yeah, I would start looking at what you're interested in. Do you find yourself really loving English or science or math? I would start reaching out, like if you have family friends that are, engineers, or maybe you have a paleontologist friend somewhere, or, contact the people who are already working those jobs and ask them what their day-to-day is like. Are you sitting at a computer? Are you moving around a lot? Are you working with people? Like figure out what kind of jobs you'd be interested in having. And that's okay. Like it's very hard. Like I'm very fortunate. I just knew what I wanted to do. So it can be harder if maybe you like a lot of things or you're confused on what to do. Figure out how you like to spend your free time. Do you want a job that can supply you with enough money so you can travel and do hobbies? Or do you want, a job that maybe pays less, but you love your job, you love going to your 9 to 5 and things like that. I hope that answers the question. It's kind of all over the place.
No, that's perfect. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the education and training it takes to get into a job like this. And so what type of education does it require? High school, community college, 4-year degree, and when you do go to college, what is the major?
Yeah, so for people in paleontology, you usually get a Bachelor of Science in Geology or Biology. And I got mine in geology and anthropology, but anthropology I just really loved the classes, and there were a lot of things that were similar, so I ended up majoring in that as well. But in terms of like what to do for fossil prep, A bachelor's degree is great. A master's, a lot of people in this field have a master's degree in museum science or really just, geology or paleontology. My biggest advice for if you want to get into fossil prep is to volunteer, get experience, like actually do the job before getting it, because I think that's what gave me the edge of getting this job is I had so much experience actually doing the things that I do, and I got to learn that what I liked and what I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But for paleontology, if you want to be a curator or a professor that does research and is at the cutting edge of science, that you will probably need a master's or PhD, which is a little bit more schooling. But if you learn that you love research, it can be great. I have plenty of friends that absolutely love research, and they're even doing postdocs.
Yeah, the postdoc life is a long road, but those students do love it.
Yeah.
For your degree, what was your favorite class you got to take in school, or your favorite couple of classes?
So some of my favorite classes were the ones the geology courses where I got to actually go out and do the field work. I love field work, so I got to do mapping was really fun, and learning stratigraphy, so what the rocks look like, the layers. That was a lot of fun. I took a couple of biology courses that weren't necessarily part of my degree, but I loved anatomy. So I did biology 1 and 2, and they had labs. I loved dissections, and I loved osteology. So we got to look at the bones of different animals, and that was really cool. But yeah, lots of cool classes.
Osteology, very interesting. You keep talking about getting to go out in the field. Where in Texas did you get to go, or in other states?
Yeah, so I've been out in the field in this little town called Seymour, Texas. It's south of Wichita Falls, about like 45 minutes. And it's this little town, and the rocks, the dirt is this beautiful red color. And that has a lot of animals like Diplocaulus that I mentioned earlier, and animals like, oh gosh, I don't have a model with me. Dimetrodon has a big sail on its back. It's often, a lot of people put in with dinosaurs, but it's actually not a dinosaur. But it's got this big sail, looks like a big lizard with a big sail on it. That animal is found there as well.
Oh, very cool. And I have to ask, because I know some of the students want to know, where are the dinosaurs?
Big Bend National Park has dinosaurs. Tyrannosaurus Rex, Alamosaurus is big, giant, long-necked dinosaur. And then this animal called Quetzalcoatlus, which I do have a model of. It looks like a pterodactyl. So that's Quetzalcoatlus. And then here's the person to scale. So you can see how big this animal is.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so this guy was found out in Big Bend too, which is super cool. We also have dinosaurs in the Dallas area, things called like Protohadros, and this little kind of tiny dinosaur is found out here. Dallas was at the edge of the interior seaway during the Cretaceous. So you have marine fossils, and then you have dinosaur fossils.
Wow, to think about the sea being up here in Dallas seems like such a dream. But that's so interesting. It's interesting that there are different dinosaurs are found in these different areas too, that they kind of had where they lived. I think I love the models, how they're so large compared to us. I can't even imagine that. It seems like when people talk about dragons and you're like, they're imaginary, but dinosaurs are real.
Yeah.
And so for just kind of how your job works and things, what are your normal hours in a day in the week?
Yeah, so thankfully I am a full-time employee, which means that I work kind of like a 9 to 5. So my time is like 8 to 4, and we have benefits, which is super awesome. You guys will figure that out later when you start looking at jobs. I had no idea what any of those things meant until later, like 2 years ago. Like I've got benefits, which is really great. Like I'm in a really good position. I'm hourly, so I get paid by the hour instead of a salary where you're paid. I actually don't really know how salaries work. Yeah.
I think it's like you get a certain amount per month, no matter the amount of hours you work, more or less.
Which means you can work overtime without getting overtime.
Yes. And so are you normally Monday through Friday?
I swap back and forth between Monday through Friday and then Sunday through Thursday, since we are open during the weekend. I've got 2 other coworkers who we're trying to cover all we can on the weekends, and everybody wants a weekend, so we swap.
Okay, very interesting. And do you get vacations?
I do get vacations because I'm full-time. I actually do get vacations. Sometimes it can be a little tricky. I can take vacation days, but sometimes I might have to work around a holiday, which is something to consider if you're looking at paleontology. Museums are, they're super popping during the holidays, and so we got to staff them. And sometimes that means you got to work around Thanksgiving or around Christmas.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing to know. And I know you go indoors and outdoors based on what you're doing, but where do you spend most of your time?
Inside the lab. Yeah, we spend most of our time in the lab working with volunteers and working with our fossils. Occasionally we have the outdoors, but yeah.
So it sounds like you also get to work with a lot of different people too.
Yes, and I do enjoy that because we have our volunteers come in, new volunteers each day or different volunteers each day. And then we work with the public sometimes. And it's a really cool position to be in where you love the work that you do and you also get to share it with people who are interested in it. It's really, yeah.
That's awesome. And so financial questions about your job, just a couple of those too. You kind of told us how you were paid. And so do you get overtime if you're working additional hours?
We do, but we try to stay at 40 hours because we do have a budget. And with museums and any like nonprofit museums especially, you got to make sure you stay within budget because money can be tight sometimes. So not working so much overtime now, but you can get overtime.
Makes sense. And how has your job been affected by the economy and COVID?
Yeah, so COVID, well, we were shut down for a while. And so that takes a hit, especially as a museum where you got, a certain amount of budget. It can be rough. So that is one side. That's another side of paleontology that's not so great is, you can spend, forever getting your PhD or your master's and finally get a job in a museum and the economy tanks and people aren't going to entertainment as much because they can't afford it or, a pandemic hits, you can lose your job. And I've known a few people that it's happened to and it's bad. You definitely need to have a plan B, I think, if you're in paleontology. And thankfully, if you go into paleontology and you have a bachelor's degree in at least, geology or biology, you can probably find a job elsewhere. But just something that I wish I had done, just keep in the back of my mind, have a plan B if you're doing, I think it's plan B anyway, whatever you're doing.
Of course.
Especially if you want to do museum stuff. But it's worth it. I think high risk, high reward.
Well, it sounds like a very fun job. Do you have any other models or different things?
Yeah, I forgot to show you. So you're trying to say about dinosaurs in Texas. If you're in the area and you've been to Glen Rose Dinosaur National State Park.
Yeah.
This is a cast of the footprint. It was a birthday gift, but we have dinosaurs like this guy. He looks a little bit like T-Rex.
He does.
Yeah, but he's got this big ridge on the back. His name is Acrocanthosaurus, but he was running around during the Cretaceous in Texas.
He looks like a T-Rex that like the Power Rangers added additional stuff to.
Yeah, that's what's great. Yeah, he does.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I got here.
That cast of the footprint is amazing.
It's pretty cool. You can buy it in the gift shop there.
I just get T-shirts for my birthday. You should go do those things. And so if any of our students are, thinking maybe this is the career they want to do, or they're really interested in it, what advice would you give them for preparing to go after this type of career in their future?
Find a mentor. Find a good mentor. This is the only reason I'm here is because I've had so many people help me along the way. at the Houston Museum, SMU, the college I went to, and then internships I did during the summer. Find people who are going to support you, hopefully somebody in the museum realm, because then you've got connections, you're making connections. But reach out, cold email people, go on the museum's website, your local museum, and reach out to those people. Look at volunteering opportunities, but finding somebody who knows your skill set, who knows you personally, they can lead you to opportunities you would never dream of.
I think that's awesome advice. And thank you so much for joining us today and talking with our students. To our students, remember to complete your survey that will be at the end of this video and in the link in the bio of the video to get credit for this course. Once you get 80% of the course completed, you will receive your certificate for the course. So thank you for joining us today.